No countdown.
Just do it. Just
Now we're
Band-Aid
live.
on.
So for anybody who uses this platform, there's a new, feature. You gotta skip over that. We're going for intro number 2. Thank you everybody for joining us. I'm Jen. I'm your host of Blockchain Banter. Welcome to another trading crypto call. I'm here with Keith Allen, TA algo trader, order book analyst, and co-founder of Material Indicators, along with Dr. Mark Richardson, project lead at Bancor and Carbon DeFi. Thank you guys for joining me. As always, thank you to the viewers for tuning in. Couple different things I don't want to call them like current events or world events or, but there's a lot going on right now. And we often refer to the US economy when we're talking about trading. And with, the hurricane affecting a lot of the Southeast, I hope everyone is safe. Any of our viewers, friends and family, are safe. And the dock strike, never mind, everything going on in the Middle East, there's a lot happening. And I guess I'm just kind of curious where you guys think that leaves us. How big an effect do you think that might have? And are we starting to see the effects of it already? Or of them, I should say. There are multiple events going on. Keith or Mark, Keith, go ahead.
Well, they are current events. We could call them what they are.
But they are.
And we can't even say, never mind the tension in the Middle East, because that's ratcheting up too. I mean, like, it's all like, what is the sum of all parts? That's
the big question.
It's pretty rough, right? The hurricane was crazy because how often do you see something so far off, right, in the Gulf of Mexico, off the coast of Florida, incidentally skirted us down here in South Florida just barely. We had a half a day of rain and a little bit of wind, but not much. But I mean, 100 miles north of me, severe damage, and it just got progressively worse. And the worst of it seems to be not necessarily on where there was impact in Florida, but a few states away on the East Coast in North Carolina. All the torrential rain. It wasn't a wind event for them, but the rain.
Mudslides and everything. I mean, it's been devastating for so many.
When you see houses floating down the street, here's your sign. Yeah. It's bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's going to have an impact that obviously at the regional level is going to impact a lot of communities. And yes, there's going to be resources used to help them recovery. And I read yesterday that, the FEMA, for anybody who doesn't know, Federal Emergency Management, has the resources available to deal with this. They have the reserves to deal with this, but Biden, of course, saying that he may need to call Congress for some additional funding once the mud settles and they see exactly what they have going on. I don't know that the hurricane has a direct impact on what we're seeing in the markets at the moment. But I sure do feel like that longshoremen's strike at the ports certainly
it's a big deal.
Is a big deal because that can resonate through the entire economy, right?
Yeah.
Think back to COVID days when we had such a backup, and there were ships backed up in the port for weeks, for months, right? And we couldn't get that cargo offloaded and delivered, cross country. That created supply chain bottlenecks. So we're potentially facing a similar set of circumstances where if this goes on for a prolonged period of time, it can have a ripple effect. I heard yesterday a report that said for every day they strike, it takes 5 days to catch up in terms of getting that cargo offloaded and distributed, on trucks and shipped out. So this was, without going too deep down the economic rabbit hole,
right.
This strike. We do have a port or several ports also, around the country on the West Coast. So the U.S. isn't shut off completely, but obviously it takes more time for anybody that was headed to, to deliver in New York or New Jersey or even Texas to make it to California, to the West Coast.
Right.
So that already starts a logistic issue. Some have already, some that were anticipating something like this happening have already planned for that. And I understand that I read reports that said a lot of the retailers have already placed their orders and received their merch for holidays. So it shouldn't necessarily have a direct impact on that. Um, Bottom line is this thing needs to come to resolution. The sooner this comes to resolution, the better. The longer
Yeah.
it takes, the the wider the ripple effect is going to be felt across the country. And so, we have all of this uncertainty going on around the election. We're just coming out of this inflation issue, and now here's another hammer coming down
I
on it.
saw oil prices were going up now. I mean, it's just coming in from all different directions and angles, you know?
And that's just the way things work, right? It's
Right.
never just super easy and clear cut and always going to be
Where's the
easy
excitement in that?
to navigate. Right? That's boring.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's concern over that, and I would not, I would not doubt that the price action that we're seeing right now, may be due to fears of this strike being prolonged. But um, do you have the same fear on the first day of a strike? I mean, it doesn't. I don't know how far apart they are in terms of what they're trying to negotiate. But I guess if you're not there, if you're not there, you might as well be 100 miles apart, right? So
Right.
so who knows?
I
But I sure
started
do hope
following this
they sort it
maybe
out
like,
pretty soon.
yeah, I started following it maybe a week ago or so, and I was seeing what a scale, like what a grand scale this is, and how large this really is. Um, and part of me was thinking they're not going to actually let this happen. Like you got to come to some sort of a compromise or an agreement, or of course, I don't know the details of it. Right. All I know is that they couldn't agree on this. So I wasn't really sure if this was going to happen. I was one of the preparers in the meantime, just in case it did, just because you don't know. We did see what happened with COVID, and from what I understand, I mean, we haven't seen anything in the US at this scale. I think it was since 1977 I was reading,
Yeah,
something like 50
I
something
read I
years,
read the
close
same I read the
to,
same thing.
it's,
And part of the issue obviously is wages, right? That,
of
that's
course.
pretty much across the board with any strike.
Yeah.
But another sticking point, and a big sticking point for them, is the amount of automation. And so there is concern, obviously, among the labor about the automation that's coming in, because that's going to eliminate jobs. And so, meanwhile, we're at a um, I don't want to. I don't know if it's appropriate to say we're on the cusp of another industrial revolution, but quite frankly, with AI and machine learning and robotics and the technology that's all starting to really progress at an exponential rate, we may be on the cusp of something like that.
Well, I mean, I go to restaurants and things, and you sit down and you place your order on an iPad, or you place it on something that's already like sitting there at your table, and somebody will come over and bring it. There's no, you know what I mean? You go into your fast food place or whatever it is, and you have the kiosk there, or you have something that's there where you go in and place your order. So you could see where this is already having an impact, in certain areas, especially like I said, I noticed that I came from that, you know, food industry, food and hospitality, like restaurants, sort of. So I notice it there specifically, but I think you're right. We're starting to see a little bit of a shift. Mark, I know that you're not in the United States, and we were kind of talking a little bit more about United States. I also know that you tend to follow, global. Do you have any thoughts on this? Have you been following this at all?
I haven't been following the strike necessarily, but I think that there's we ended on a note there that I think that I can contribute to, which is like this like looming fear of like the AI takeover of let's say low skilled labor to some
I
extent.
wouldn't call them
Some
low
some would
skilled
even argue
labor.
so yeah, some might even say high skilled labor.
Mhm.
There's a really terrific book that I recommend. I can't remember what it's called, but I remember its author. The author was an economics professor from the London School of Economics named David Graeber or Greiber. I think the book is called "If You Think Your Job Is Pointless, It Probably Is." And it was exploring this, this idea that actually most people in employed positions don't really need to be employed there. There's a huge amount of like redundant labor or people that are kind of given busy work as a career that doesn't really need to be there, especially in sort of these like middle positions inside of very large conglomerates and things. But it's very similar to how the labor force was organized in sort of the Soviet era inside of the Soviet Union, where you would have sort of a person at the checkout to sort of scan the items, a person to like open the bag, and then a person to put the item inside the bag. Like that's three people being employed there. A lot of the labor force everywhere in the world, right? The United States, Australia, like everywhere, there is this kind of tendency to go for overemployment in order to to keep people employed. But the reality is, like, automation has been coming for the labor force for a very long time, and to the point where at even prior to the arrival of like these kind of AI tools, we don't really need like 95% of people in the jobs that they currently have. And because those automations didn't dispose of the labor force, I really highly doubt that AI will either. Instead of your job being to write these things down and from your own creativity, instead now your job will be to consult the AI and write down what it says. Like it just makes more and more people effectively useless, but we tend to keep them employed. Like this is 100-year-old trend. So I don't think that we'll see. I think we'll see a much larger number of people answer that question with yes. I now believe my job is pointless, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily not going to have a job anymore. It just means that
I
their
think
job
you're being a
will
little
start to feel a
harsh.
little less fulfilling.
I
But
wouldn't
but
call this. Go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Keith.
No, you
No,
go
no,
ahead.
no. I was gonna say, Mark, when you first said low skilled or labor, and then you said even high skilled, and then going into pointless jobs. I think that sounds really harsh because I don't think that a lot of these jobs that are being replaced are pointless. I think they might be replaceable, but I don't think that they're actually pointless. And
Well,
I think that
they're not pointless because
there could, I mean,
they're being replaced with automation that is executing the job. So pointless is maybe semantics. But I certainly understand what Mark meant by that. And a prime example of what Mark is illustrating. I took my kid to the dentist yesterday, and there were um, four um, four employees at the reception desk. And okay, so some of them may have been hygienists that just didn't have an appointment at the time. I don't know, but they were all on computers. Um, Actually, except the main one who's normally at the desk who really wasn't doing anything. Um, Took my daughter in to get her teeth cleaned. The hygienist, after the dentist comes in, does his check. Hygienist comes, is there. Dentist leaves. Hygienist pulls out a point of sale card reader, takes my payment, books the next appointment, which is something that usually happens when you check out at the front desk on the way out at a
yeah,
doctor's
that's
appointment here in
odd.
the
Yeah.
U.S. So completely bypassed that process. It was um, faster, more efficient, streamlined, all of the things that you look for in workflows. And I was saying to myself, what is the point of having 3 or 4 people work the front desk? What are they doing? Um, and sure, they could have been working on any number of things, but it just seemed like not not optimal efficiency,
Yeah.
for a
See,
small office like that. And if
I
you
don't know
think of it
how
at
big an
scale,
office.
right? If you think of it at scale for a large office or a large business, and you can introduce that kind of operational efficiency by using, maybe not necessarily going to the extreme of using robotics, like we might see,
that are actually
unloading
cleaning your
ships,
teeth or something.
but just for streamlining processes that make work efficiencies, that improves work efficiencies, and maybe even helps employers scale back the number of people they need to pay. And if they do that, can they then pay the ones that they keep on a higher wage?
Okay, so then looking at the bigger
I,
picture here in terms of economy, how does that affect the economy? Or how would that? I mean, and we're getting
hard to
into,
say.
well, it is hard to say, but if you're suddenly left with all of these people that are unemployed, and
Well,
replaced
I
by
mean, on the
this sort of
sure,
automation.
yeah, there's a contrarian argument. I'm not convinced one way or the other that it's necessarily going to lead to massive employment or massive unemployment. But there are like examples. Like I was reading a Reddit thread that someone sent to me. Like I'm convinced I'm working for an AI, and so they're a freelancer, and they get their tasks sent by email, and they occasionally have to jump on, like Telegram to discuss the work, and the guy's convinced that it's an AI. That he's the AI is responding to his emails. He comes on, he sends emails at the same time every day. He's always on Telegram, apparently like constantly around the clock. I mean, in a way, so am I, so that's not necessarily suspicious. But yeah, just like some of the responses that he was getting, and the kinds of, I don't know, like AI has this over tendency to use the word delve, and things like that. Like it just had these kind of hallmarks of AI. So now the AI is actually employing people, like it's the management, the people in the middle whose job is easily outsourceable to an AI that are being replaced. Whereas, it was for coding work, which is one of the things that people have often espoused is exactly the thing that AI is coming, to replace. And I don't think that that's true. And there's a really great argument by the Primogen, who's a YouTube channel, and I think he was or is the lead engineer at Netflix. And he makes this argument that if we assume that AI is a statistical model, which of course it is, and you have a look at the amount of code that it's trained on, like 99% of it is horseshit code. And therefore it's going to produce like an approximation of the code that it's trained on. And so it's going to produce a similarly bad result. And so you still need these specialists to come in. But yeah, it's just an interesting case where there's an AI that is now this guy is convinced he's working for an AI that's now outsourcing coding work to a human.
But
For the
no
for the
way of
human to do it,
knowing.
because the management.
There's no way
There's
of
no way of
knowing if he's
knowing. No,
actually,
of course.
Right.
actually under the control or direction of AI, or
Yeah.
if the person in charge of who leads that role is just exploiting AI as much as they can
Using
to
an
streamline
AI.
their own workflows.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's
Keith, I
something
know
I
you have a
experiment
hard
with all the
stop.
time.
But yeah.
What's that?
I was saying, I know you have a hard stop in 15 minutes, and I feel like I didn't realize we've already been talking about this for 20. I want to continue this, but because of our limited time today, I also want to bring this back into the charts. I was saying, are we seeing like these current events and things? How big of an effect? And you said we're possibly starting to see these effects already in the market today.
Well, today
right?
we're seeing a pullback. There's no question about that. Was that as a result of the strike, or is it a result of just
Needing a pullback.
what we're seeing in the charts? And a long anticipated monthly and quarterly close yesterday. We're always looking for clues when we come up to these calendar events.
Right.
And rarely is it as clear cut as we'd like it to be, right? I mean, we know that if we had a close up above 72, then we would have been like, oh, hell yeah, it's going to be on for Q4. October.
What was the close? What did
Um,
the close on?
the close was
72. You're saying 72,000 for Bitcoin?
Yeah. But that didn't happen, obviously,
didn't
right?
happen.
We didn't take out higher highs. We didn't do that. We faded back. In fact, we the last week of the month, we had a nice rally, and we reclaimed the 200-day moving average. We reclaimed the 2021 mid-cycle top around 65K. Things were looking good, and staying above those levels would have in my opinion, been more positive than what we actually ended up with, and that was a slide back below the 2021 top and a slide back below the 200-day moving average. And so I'm thinking to myself, well, at least the 21-week moving average is held, and if we have that, then we're still in striking distance of all these other technical resistance levels up to the all-time high. And I don't know, about an hour and a half ago, we lost that. So that does not bode well for strength in the chart, right? Bulls have lost momentum here. Can they regain it? Absolutely. But there's no guarantee that they do. And what are we seeing between the monthly and the quarterly charts that gives us any clue of to what we can expect? Now, again, like I said, I was liking the fact that we were above that 21-week moving average, and we've since lost that. We're close, but we're below it, and the fact that we're below it and that we've lost that is a sign of weakness to me. So where do we potentially go from here? I guess I could share a screen and we can start looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I see Mark shared his screen as well, so maybe we'll take a look and see what you guys are both looking at. We always say that everybody draws their own lines and interprets things a little bit differently, so it's interesting to compare.
Well, it'd be great if Mark sees something better than I see.
So not October.
Okay. Well, in September, I don't know if you remember, in September, September was the
We dread September.
what was
It's
it? The
worst.
September slump, or whatever whatever the crypto bros were calling it. And at the beginning of September, I said, listen, don't buy into these narratives because always and never tend to not age well in this game. And so, we back then we looked at all the series of Septembers and saw that they were, for the most part, a very close number of ups versus downs. Slight advantage to the downs in September, but of course we had an up month here, finished over 7% to the upside. Unfortunately, we gave back some of those things at the end, and we could have had a much better close. And I make that point about the September slump, not to go, I told you so, but to remind people, don't buy into these narratives, right? If you just trade blindly on October, I hope you have something behind that other than
October.
just October, because let's just say this: you're increasing your risk. It may or may not pan out the way that you want, but I can tell you that if you're just going on that blind narrative, you're increasing your risk. And that's not how I choose to trade. And so I actually did look at all of the Octobers dating back to the beginning, the genesis of Bitcoin, which was, of course, in an October. And so largely, for the most part, most of the Octobers have been green months for Bitcoin. I think 4 of them have been red. And so, again, you can't say all or none, but I would just be cautious about saying it's going to be up, because sometimes it's not. And what we're seeing here in the charts right now shows us, on that monthly, here was our monthly candle. We had a decent, a decent range here. I think the best part about September is that we indeed marked a double bottom, which could be seen better on the daily chart, I guess. We marked this double bottom down here and had a decent rally up, right? But look at what we've given back here in the past 3 days.
Yeah.
We what did we do from this bottom? Was up 26%, faded back, so we've given back 6-8% of that so far. And so
26% where?
we went 26% up from marking a double bottom
Just
up
this
to
month then.
just this month.
Yeah.
But ended up with, the result was a 7% candle, 7.35%, something like that.
Right.
And so now you see on the daily, we have, we lost the 200-day moving average again. We're now hovering on the 21-day moving average. It's the 21 week that we were hoping to hold, and you can see that we're at the moment below that. So now let's look at monthly and quarterly candles, because this is really what I was watching, coming into last night, or the day, I should say. I was looking for new trend precognition signals, and we actually have a tentative signal here on the A1 algo down here. This is a bit more forward thinking than the A2 plus algo up here up top, so I'm okay with that. But we just have to note that this is still a tentative signal until this candle closes. So if price dumps back down to this level, it's going to invalidate. So that was one part, and then of course the quarterly. Q4 has typically been pretty good for Bitcoin most years, except for, when we're starting a bear market, which has to start sometime. Hopefully that's not starting now. So what we saw in September on the quarterly chart was a textbook doji candle here. And dojis tend to signal indecisiveness. And that's kind of consistent with what we're seeing, right? So when a doji appears after a pronounced trend, then it can signal a trend reversal. When a doji appears after a prolonged consolidation, it could, it tends to indicate more of the same. Well, I would argue that we have been in more of what I would consider a consolidation than a downtrend over the last several months.
You've said this a few times that what you're seeing is more of a consolidation.
Well, we're still above some key levels here of historical importance, and so now if we break down from here, then that's
Another story.
that's another story. But if you put this in the context of everything else that's happening in the world, right? Our presidential election uncertainty, our, just working our way out of this inflation with rate cuts, et cetera, geopolitical tension, going from a simmer to a boil, and now this longshoreman strike. There's enough going on there to say that, yeah, uncertainty sounds like a plausible thing right now, right? So that's what I think we're seeing. So, if in terms of looking for signals that could indicate, give us some more clarity, yes, seeing this this long signal down here is good to see, but it's by no means a sure thing at this stage. And if things do continue to break down, my expectation is that, especially for this to be valid, for this signal down here to be valid, my expectation is that this double bottom would hold. If it doesn't, then we're going down here to test this, our local low, if you will, which is 49K and change. And as you can see, this now has confluence with the trend line, right? So if things do break down through here, then we have this trend line to look at. And as I've said all along, that trend line, in my opinion, is the strongest foundational support we have on the chart, in terms of what could serve as a foundation for the next leg up. And so if things break down from there, this could be really a great opportunity. And to the contrary, if this breaks down, then it just might be over. So that's what I'm eyeing right now. I think
just might be over. Is that what you said?
Well, in terms of this run, if we lose this trend line and we don't recover it very, very quickly, then I would be concerned that maybe we're in for a prolonged downtrend, uh, and that would probably invalidate the whole bull run for me. I guess the last line of defense would be down here on the 200 week moving average, down here around 39K right now. Um, Not a level that anybody that bought up here wants to go see, but you can't rule it out. Again, I'm looking for this to hold. Maybe we even test the 50 week moving average and don't get down here. Higher highs would be good, lower lows not good. So
Right.
that's really, in the simplest terms, what I'm looking for. Now, if we are in an extended consolidation, this could, for Bitcoin, this could potentially mean that there's some good opportunities for alts. So that's something else I'm looking for. I don't really spend a lot of time with alts, but I'm obviously looking for some setups that might offer some decent upside.
I was going to ask you because normally, every once in a while we talk about alts, right? I was going to ask you if you've noticed any that have presented any sort of significant, opportunity for upside or anything of
Well,
this sort. But I know we're also at, close to the time that you have to go.
there
So I want to
there
be
there are,
cautious.
but it's hard. What I think now differs from what I thought 3 hours ago. Once we started losing um, the 21 week moving average, and
Yeah.
so I'm looking to see what kind of recovery we get off of those. I did take some um, small positions that I set last night, thinking that 21 week was going to hold, and it didn't. So now I'm determining if I'm going to add to those positions or if I'm going to kill those positions.
Yeah.
I just want to see how this is developing a little bit before I rush into something.
Are you looking more at this than you are liquidity at the moment or the order book?
Always looking at liquidity in the order book, and
Yeah.
I
I
got a
know we
couple
have,
minutes,
I
so I'll
know.
share it with you here of what we're seeing. And I noticed this yesterday, and I posted something that we had started to see. Bids were starting to step downward, and
Hmm.
what happens next is pretty predictable. So we're seeing at the moment a little bit of support move into place in this 60.5 to 61.5 range. Is that going to be enough to hold us? I don't know. I want to zoom out here and get a wider view of the chart and see if we can gain some better perspective here. Let's see what the 6 month looks like. All right, so we're basically coming right into a stack of bid liquidity right at this level now. So if this doesn't hold, if that 61.5, 60.5 doesn't hold, then you can see it's a pretty easy slide down here to
Yeah,
the
it is.
60K level. And if that doesn't hold, it's an easy dip down to 55K
Easier
level,
dip down. Yeah.
and so on and so forth. Right. So this is,
It's
you know,
telling.
right. So 50K support still there. Um, and if this gets tested, this is perfectly aligned with
With this. Hmm.
our 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 trend line down here, right? So
Yeah.
the trend line is a little bit lower than that. So that um has to defend that level to keep it off this trend line.
I always learn so much from you, Keith. We've been doing this for over a year and I always learn so much from you. So I want to say thank you, just sharing it all with us.
I'm hey, I get wrong. I do wrong a lot. So,
Yes,
keep that in
okay. It's
mind.
not financial advice that you're giving that I'm saying I appreciate. It's just kind of the way that you're interpreting this and the way that you're putting these pieces together. Like, I do appreciate that, and I know that our viewers do also. I also know that you have to go. It is about that time.
It
So
it
I
is,
want
it
to be
is.
conscious of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta take my kid to the airport, ship her back off to college.
Well, I hope that your daughter has a safe flight. Your kid, yes, your daughter has a safe flight. Everything goes well with her travels. And definitely, I hope everybody that's in the Southeast, everybody affected by everything that's going on right now, is safe as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So
The devastation on the hurricane is just really, really tough on a lot of people.
yeah. Well, we will definitely catch up next week. Thank you so much. We have another blockchain banter tomorrow. So I'll see some of you tomorrow. Otherwise, I will see the rest of you next Tuesday. Thank you so much, Keith. And I apologize, Mark had to drop. But we'll hopefully see him next Tuesday as well.
All right. Thanks, Jen. Have a good one.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
See everybody.